who was the producer. I happened to hear it, decided I wanted to try to make a film out of it. So we got the rights to it, and after a gazillion different script iterations, I got to a stopping point where I couldn't see anymore. And at that point, Dave came in and said, let me... I put the bones down, but he breathed the life into the screenplay. So the screenplay came to life, and then he decided, let me show this to my brother Joe Henry, who's obviously a music producer, performer, all-around, whatever you want to call it. Also co-author of Dave's book on Richard Pryor. But Joe came on board, which kind of raised the profile of the film, and that in turn brought on Loudon Wainwright, Amy Mann, Joe Henry himself, of course, Karen Berquist from Over the Rhine, Adam Kramer from Broken Spurs, Katie O'Brien, and a couple others. Morgan Nagler from Whispertown, too.
So let's talk about the film. How long did it take you to shoot it and edit it and get it out?
The shooting process was about 3 weeks, not a real long shoot. Most of the film takes place in a studio, which actually was Kevin Ratterman's studio, La La Land. And the last part of it was shot at the Brown Hotel in the Brown Theater. The editing took about 6 months to 12 months over test screenings and things like that. And then we premiered the film. We did a sneak preview at World Cafe Live with David Dye, who actually cameos also in the film, back in February, made some adjustments, and then premiered it at CBGB up in New York and signed our deal on Thanksgiving with Virgil Films.
I'm just so excited about this film, truly. You've got some great actors a part of this. Now, when you were out there approaching these folks and soliciting for their involvement, was it hard? Was it easy? What made you decide the artist that you chose?
It was really Dave talking to Joe, which got the big ball rolling. Joe,
my brother Joe, who's a producer, singer, recording artist himself, and he's produced a lot of the people who were in the movie. And I'd shown him the script, talked about it, and we approached him actually for playing a different role. And he's like, he was just like, I'm not enough of an, I don't want to make it. This would be fun, but I don't want to make a fool of myself. And his wife Melanie actually said, "What about John Doe? That he would be perfect because my brother had produced some tracks for him, and he hung around the house a lot. But yeah, he was great. And once we had Joe and John Doe, then Amy Mann came on, and Karen Berquist, and Loudon Wainwright, who my brothers produced also. So
yeah, they worked on Knocked Up together, and something about John that's interesting. John, of course, was in Boogie Nights and Roadside Prophets. He's been an actor along with Loudon for 20, 30 years. So it's not like they were we've never acted before. They came in not only as rock and rollers, and X was obviously hugely influential, but they're legitimately terrific actors who've worked with folks like De Niro and P.T. Anderson and those guys.
Guys, so you're rolling out Pleased to Meet Me. Can you give us just a high-level overview for those who don't know the movie itself, what the storyline is?
Sure, you want to tackle
Sure,
this
basically it's Amy Mann plays a producer who has the idea of putting together a band for just one day, just from musicians advertising in classifieds, Craigslist, drummer seeks band. That was the premise of the This American Life episode. It's sort of a Lonely Hearts column. Like, why doesn't somebody get these people together? So just, as an experiment, she wants to put together a band. And then John Doe's character is sort of at a creative crossroads. He feels a little bit stalled out, and he sort of maybe hijacks the project a little for his own purposes, or tries to. So after that, it sort of becomes an ensemble piece. I wouldn't exactly say Robert Altman, but, it's like people kind of pair off, and they have their own little intrigues, and it all takes place. The bulk of the movie takes place over the course of one day in the studio.
That's amazing. So you guys will be rolling it out here in Louisville. What are the dates? It's Louisville and Lexington, I think?
Yeah, it's going to be a kind of a big premiere weekend. We'll premiere at the Center for the Arts February 15th. And John's coming in. John Doe's coming in for that. And Karen, too, I believe.
Karen Berquist, yes.
And then the 16th in Lexington at the Kentucky Theater. And then it goes out nationwide April 22nd.
Was it shot primarily in Louisville?
It was all shot
entirely.
Oh,
yes.
wow, wow.
Yeah.
Like I say, most of it took place at La La Land, Kevin Ratterman's studio, and there were some scenes at
The Knock Bar features.
Knock Bar.
Butchertown's in there. And of course, the Brown Theater in downtown as well.
Yeah, I read an article about, I think it was in a FAR last year.
Yes.
And they talked about the Diners Club, and all the musicians talked very highly of
Yeah,
all
they-
the great...
It's a total scam on Joe's part.
Yeah,
was it?
the editor there, he's also a music writer, and he had mentioned to Joe, because Joe he writes wonderful liner notes for records that he produces, and he's written a few magazine pieces. And this guy said, if you ever want to write something for a FAR, let me know. And they were here, and they was like, oh, geez, we're going to be in Louisville, Kentucky for 3 weeks. What are we going to do? And of course, all of West Market, but they just fell in love with the restaurant scene there. And so Joe called up and said,
It was great. They
this
raved
group,
about it.
this group of us here, we're just hanging out in Louisville, and we're like having these fabulous meals every night. And he just wrote as you said, the Diners Club. They wrote about what they talked about, how they, what their meals were like. It was like my dinner with Andre every night, I guess. It was like, amongst six people.
It was some great conversation too. I was lucky enough to be in on a number of those meals, but it was good to see some of the we talk about Louisville getting the. It was great to see those local restaurants featured in a national magazine, and also Amy and Joe just fell in love with Please and Thank You over there on.
Yeah, Amy was tweeting every morning like, what kind of Mecca paradise is this? A coffee shop with vinyl. And
That's a cool stamp of approval.
Yeah.
That's who you want saying.
right.
Yeah, they get to say what's cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Folks, if you're just tuning in, this is Louisville Arts Live. We have the pleasure of having Archie Borders and David Henry in the studio. We're talking about the movie Pleased to Meet Me that's coming out February 15th here in Louisville, Kentucky Center for the Arts. And then in Lexington, when is it coming out again?
The next night, February 16th.
Well, you touched on it. Let's talk about this explosion, so to speak, of Louisville in the national spotlight. Movies are just popping out for the last 3-4 years that I know of. I think there has been a great explosion. What do you guys attribute that to here locally?
I would say
the humidity.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like there's a lot of talent here. I mean,
Absolutely.
Archie and I have both done a lot of work in advertising and video. And there are people who make a living that way. But there's a lot of talent. People who have these projects. They're carrying. They're what's the word I want to say? They're gestating and
Yes.
And I think it's just people come to town here and they just like. Crap, why didn't anybody tell us about this? And it's like, people come visit me from New York or L.A. and they say, like, how much do you pay for this house?
Right.
Yeah, that's that. When Amy was in town recently for that concert she did over at the Clifton Center, we were driving her up to North End to eat something, and she's talking to Ted Leo, who was on the bill with her, and she's all they were talking about was real estate. You can't believe the size house you can get for this kind of money, because they're in Los Feliz in L.A. where you can get a shack for $600,000. So that was kind of cool.
Well, in acting and in music, Louisville lets you gestate. It lets you develop, fail, book an open mic on a Tuesday and do it and kind of hone your craft. Where in New York or in LA, you have to start at such a high level that to fail or not be able to make it, Louisville lets you do that, and that's why the arts can grow and it can become this kind of exporter of creativity.
Yeah, Louisville's very forgiving in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, I have Matt Anthony, my co-host today. We're talking with the folks, Pleased to Meet Me, Mr. Archie and Mr. David, who are live in the studio. If you have any questions for anyone, please feel free to call us, 502-822-6116.